All right, men, welcome to today's episode of Strong Men, Strong Marriages, being liked versus being respected. Now, we want both, right? But a lot of times we really go for being liked. Like it's so important to us, and that often leads to us not being respected by ourselves or by others. Okay, so we're going to talk about why sometimes they go against each other, and also how going more for respect can actually lead to real intimacy and real liking. So my name is Mike Frazier, MD. I'm a psychiatrist and marriage coach, and I help high achieving Christian men have more intimate marriages. So someone's from guys in my program, my Strong Men, Strong Marriages program. So guys, they're overcoming pornography, which is so cool. It's such a common issue for a lot of guys, Christian guys, right? They want to overcome it, and through the steps in the program, they do it, right? Guys, they're creating more mental and emotional intimacy with their wives. They're having tough discussions. They're connecting and they're being known. They're letting themselves really express themselves, maybe for the first time in a long time, which we're going to talk a lot about today. Wives are excited about their husband's progress, and they're showing appreciation for that progress. I love seeing that, right? Seeing the nice notes or emails that wives send to their husbands. So cool. Guys are feeling more of God's love. We're going to talk about that some today, but that's huge, right? When we're connected in that way, we're less needy. We're able to feel that from inside that we're valuable. Okay. Increasing physical intimacy. Okay, so guys are having great physical intimacy. Their wives are, instead of turning away from their touch, they're starting to turn into their touch, right? Which is awesome. Um, so one of the bigger kind of shifts one of the guys talked about this week was, conversations going from starting to talk about divorce to then hugging and making plans for the future at the end of that, right? Because they learn these skills, these communication skills. Guys are reconnecting with friends, they're reconnecting with their hobbies, okay? And then increase self-esteem and self-worth that's based in God instead of comparison. This one's huge. It's high achieving guys. We're going to talk a lot about this today, but we're trying to get our worth from comparing ourselves to others instead of having that good solid foundation of self-worth in God. Okay. For me this week, we had a really fun, we went to Great Wolf Lodge in Anaheim. Fun place, indoor water park. It was just really cool to just spend time together as a family. And then my wife and I had a couple little mini date nights. She wasn't feeling very well, so we had to kind of do some things at home, but just got some good time to talk and be together. And, she was supporting me through some kind of hard things I was thinking and feeling. So it was just, it was nice. It was a good weekend. So, but what are you doing right now, right? Talking about being liked. So a lot of you guys out there, right? You're trying to get your wife to like you, right? And so you think the solution to that is kind of do whatever she wants, right? Happy wife, happy life. Just try to make her happy. Do everything I can to make her happy, right? That's what I'm supposed to do so that she'll like me, right? And what we're going to talk about too is someone liking you and being attracted to you are not always the same, right? There's a reason why, when you're dating, they talk about the friend zone. You don't want to be in the friend zone. So a guy that is liked goes into the friend zone because he has this mindset of do everything to make her happy. Okay. So if you were dating, you'd be buying her flowers every day and writing her a note every day and all this, while she goes for the guy that is not necessarily doing that, but feels more solid in himself, right? And it seems unfair, but this is just how it works. Okay. So if right now your mindset is happy wife, happy life, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're making the money, right? You're asking her, hey, what do you want to do for date nights? Right? What movie do you want to watch? What show do you want to watch? What do you want to eat tonight? Right? You're just doing all this stuff trying to make sure she's happy, right? So that she'll like you. Okay. So and maybe it's going so far as you have no limits on spending. She's spending a bunch of money, too much, right? Hurting your family, but you're not having any conversations about it. Okay. Maybe you're never bringing sex up so it doesn't upset her, even though it's important to you. You're not bringing it up because you don't know how, but really it's because you're worried she won't like you. It's going to ruin your chance of her liking you. Okay. Maybe you're spending more time with her family than yours. Again, trying to make her happy, right? So that she'll like you. Maybe you're doing more than what you think is fair with the kids or with household chores, right? And again, it's all fueled by this desire for her to like you. Maybe you're agreeing with everything that she says, right? You don't want to rock the boat, you don't take a stand, you kind of get run over, right? But why do you do all this, right? So again, the mosquito cycle, what that is you do these nice things for your wife. But why, right? You want something back from her. Okay, what do you want back? Usually you want attention, appreciation, affection, and sex. Okay, that's what you're looking for. But what we're talking about today is the deeper reason why. Why do you want that? Okay, it's really because you're trying to get her to build up your ego. You're trying to get her to build up your self-worth, right? You don't have enough self-worth in yourself, so you're trying to get it from her. And you're trying to suck these things off. That's why I call it the mosquito cycle. You're trying to suck off attention, appreciation, affection, and sex from her. Now, eventually, in the mosquito cycle, you get tired, you get frustrated when she doesn't give you attention, appreciation, affection, and sex. Okay. Because again, she can sense this. She knows that the things that you're doing, they're needy, right? They're trying to drain her. You know, they're she, you know, they're wanting her to give you something back. Let like you, tell you that you're good enough, basically. Okay. So eventually she stops doing it, and then you get frustrated, and then you explode or you escape. You get mad at her, you escape into pornography or work or something that's just kind of like dull your emotions. Then you feel bad after, and you start doing nice things for her again. But the problem is, right, you're not addressing the root of the issue. Okay, the root of the mosquito cycle, it's low self-worth and low self-esteem. That's where it's at. That's where the problem is. Okay, so when you're trying to be liked all the time, it's because your sense of self-esteem and self-worth are low. It's just a fact. Okay, if your main desire is to be liked by the people around you, okay, that's what's going on. Even if you're like, oh, people should respect me, they need to respect me, and you're like getting mad about that, that's still this low self-worth because you're trying to get other people to give you something you don't have, right? You're coming from a place of emptiness and expecting other people to fill you up. Okay, so again, root of the mosquito cycle, you're trying to use your wife to feel good about yourself. That's what's going on. Okay, you need to be liked by her so you can feel good enough, right? So like if you're like, because like I still fall into this sometimes. Even the other night, Elizabeth and I were talking, and I was like, man, I made these financial mistakes. I feel like a failure because of that, and kind of wanted her to tell me that she still cared, which she did, which I really value and appreciate. Um, so look, we're not going to be perfect in this stuff, and sometimes it is nice to just hear from your wife that she does care and that she values you and that kind of thing. Um, but when we're talking about this, just like consistent low self-worth, low self-esteem, you just need that all the time, right? You need constantly for her to tell you that you're good enough and that she likes you and that you need her to tell you how great she is. So for me personally, like I'm much better than I was before that. Like we had that discussion the other night, and it was nice to hear that from her. But before, like I would be in my closet and trying to choose a shirt to make sure that she liked it, and I wouldn't really choose a date night because I was worried she wouldn't really like what I chose and that kind of thing. Like that's when you have that low self-worth and low self-esteem. I wouldn't bring up conversations, all of that. And a lot of the guys that I work with, this is where they come in, right? Is where they won't really stand up for themselves because they have this deep need to be liked. But again, that's coming from this deep lack of self-worth and self-esteem. Okay. Now, this desire to be liked, it probably extends to other areas in your life and not just your marriage, right? So maybe that's at work or with church or with friends. But the thing is, in those areas, people typically give you attention, appreciation, affection. And in your work, you get money for what you do, right? And so you keep getting this feed of external validation in these places, like at work. If you're doing a good job, typically people will tell you you're doing a good job, right? And so you're like, oh, I like work because people tell me how great I am. Or at church, like you serve a lot in your church, and people are like, oh, you're so great, like you're so spiritual, you're so holy, or whatever, right? You're getting that external validation. Or with friends, right? They're like, oh man, you're awesome, you're amazing, um, you're such a good friend. Like, again, outside of your marriage, you do tend to get, especially if you're a high achieving guy, you're going to get attention, appreciation, affection, and money, right? So you're getting all this external validation other places. But the problem is, like, this keeps your self esteem artificially buoyed up, right? But keeps your actual self worth pretty low because you're still very dependent on other things to fill you up. Again, you're coming from more an empty place when it comes from self worth, and you're expecting other people to fill it up. And sometimes they do, right? And so you tend to spend time with in those places where they do, and you start getting mad at home when your wife doesn't fill you up anymore, right? Because at home you're like, can't you see how great I am? Like, look at how awesome I am, which just shows like how much you need that, right? Just shows how empty you are, that you're like trying to tell her, hey, you need to see how great I am. Tell me how great I am. Tell me how great I am. You know, when we talk about narcissism, that's the root of it also, right? Is low self-worth, and you need people that can constantly fill you up and tell you how great you are. Okay, that's the root of it. So, but what's happening, right, is at home, your wife is the only one who actually gets how needy you are, right? Because she sees it every second of every day. You know, I've told this story before, but I'd like, after my workouts, I would literally walk up to my wife and like flex in front of her because I wanted her to tell me how good I looked. Like that kind of thing, you know, like she just sees it more because she's around you more, you know, she can sense it more. um, and she starts getting tired of it, right? Eventually she stops wanting to fill you up because it drains her. Okay, that's the mosquito cycle. So now what happens in codependency, right, is because your self-esteem is low and your desire to be liked by your wife is really high, okay, consciously or unconsciously, she might start using that to her advantage a little bit. Okay. So she kind of knows you're trying to use her. And so she can feel kind of justified in using you back. And really, it is fair in a way. Right. So, what I've seen with the guys I've worked with, in the worst cases, okay, their wife will like be flirting with other guys or like be having an affair right in their face. Right. And then telling these guys that it's their fault. And these guys, they'll just kind of take it, right? Because their self-worth is really low. They won't stand up for themselves even when it's totally necessary and important to do that. Okay, they'll really be getting used by their wife. um, but again, that's because their self-worth is so low, their need to be liked is so high, that they just want their life to they want their wife to like them so much that they'll like do anything, and they start just losing. And again, the sad part about it is they're hoping to get attraction, right? They're hoping that their wife will respect them and love them because they're doing so much for them. But what actually happens is their wife doesn't have respect for them. She's not attracted to them because this whole thing, it's weak, right? It's needy, it's manipulative, and your wife sees through it. And sometimes she'll start using you back, right? In the worst cases. Okay. In less severe cases, a lot of times she'll kind of let you do things for her, and then she'll become less secure in herself, in her ability to do things, right? So in our marriage it was like that. You know, I kind of took charge of a lot of things to the point, because I needed to feel superior, is the truth, right? I needed to feel better because my self-worth was low. um, and so I took on a lot of responsibilities and she took on less, to where she kind of needed me to do stuff for her, right? And it kind of works, right? It kind of works because she was not really doing things and she felt like she couldn't, and I kind of liked to be feeling like I could do more than her. So it sort of worked, but it did not create intimacy. It didn't create a strong marriage, right? It just created a codependent situation. Okay, so that's what can happen. Okay. So, but here's the thing: in all of these cases, right, your desire to be liked by your wife, you start respecting yourself less. Okay. And really, like, that's the whole issue, is that you don't really respect yourself, right? You don't really have self-worth. You don't really have that value in yourself. So you're wanting other people to like you so you can feel good. Okay. And then what happens is other people also respect you less, because again, this is an internal thing. Respect, right, pretty much comes from you first respecting yourself, and then other people can respect you. Okay. It doesn't usually work the other way around. Okay. When you have self-respect, here's what happens, right? So you start being willing to stand up for yourself more, right? Because someone who is so needy for other people to like them won't stand up for himself because he's worried that will result in them not liking him. right? So you get caught in this cycle of constantly trying to make other people happy, but then, and hoping that they'll like respect you, but they never do, because they can't respect you because you don't respect yourself. Okay. So what you need to do, you need to remember that you're a worthy person. Okay. You have value as a son of God. You really do, right? We all have inherent worth. If you have kids, like you value each of those kids equally just because they're your kids, right? They have value, and so do you, okay, as a son of God. Another really good thing to do, so this comes from a book that I'm really a big fan of right now, The Gap and the Gain, is looking back on all the gains that you've had in your life. Like, instead of measuring, oh, like I'm not perfect, I'm not exactly like Jesus, right? Measuring yourself against ideals where you're always going to feel short. You're never going to feel like enough if you focus that way. Instead, looking backwards and saying, man, like, look at how far I've come. Look at what I've accomplished. Like, for my business, for example, look at the guys that I've been able to help, right? It's exciting. I feel grateful for that. That inspires me to do more. Okay. Or just like with Elizabeth, because just sharing, where I was to where I am now, it's a lot of growth, right? And I can focus on that and feel grateful and feel full, right? Talking about coming from a place of fullness instead of emptiness, spiritually and in a sense of self-worth. Okay. So all these things help. So then what you need to start remembering is, hey, what I think is equally important to what my wife thinks. Okay. What I think, what I want, what I desire, it's just as important as what she wants. Okay. Because when you start thinking that, it starts shifting really everything, right? Because before, when you want to be liked all the time, it's like, no, what I want's last, what my wife wants is first. Everything she wants, she's going to get, right? um, and again, what that leads to is you need to be liked, but still having that low self-worth and always needed to be filled up by her. Instead, when you're like, no, I'm just as important as she is, okay, you start thinking and feeling and acting very differently. Okay. So you start walking taller, right? You start feeling more respect for yourself. Okay. So right here, you're addressing the root of the mosquito cycle, which is a low sense of self-worth. Okay. So you start addressing that, you start feeling better about yourself. And so you don't need your wife's attention, appreciation, or affection, which paradoxically is when you'll more likely get it, because you're going to start respecting yourself more. Okay. So again, when you see yourself as just as important as your wife, when you have that good sense of self-worth, this lets you start rocking the boat. When you need to be liked all the time, you won't rock the boat. You won't bring stuff up. Okay. So you're going to bring up issues with your wife, like stuff with money, sex, in-laws, parenting, religion, housework, and time, right? You're going to understand her perspective, right? And guys that are more in this like happy wife, happy life, they're pretty good at understanding their wife. But they're not very good at respecting themselves, right? They'll understand where the wife's coming from, but they will not express what they want. They won't work towards win-wins. Okay. So when you start respecting yourself and say, hey, I'm just as important as my wife is, right? I'm not more important than her, but I'm just as important as she is. Okay. You're going to work towards win-win agreements with those things: money, sex, in-laws, parenting, religion, housework, time. Okay. You're going to be willing to have those arguments. Okay. You're also going to be willing to call out behaviors that are unkind or inappropriate that she's maybe doing, right? Or irresponsible. Okay. You're going to say, hey, that's not appropriate. I don't want you doing that. That's not okay. Okay. And again, but what lets you do that? What lets you do that is you remembering, excuse me, I'm just as important as she is. Okay. Not more important, but also not less important. I'm equally as important. Okay. I wouldn't treat you that way, so I'm going to ask you to not treat me that way. So you see the difference? It's strong. And this is what brings respect from other people, because you have respect from yourself. Okay. You get your backbone back, right? And so again, you gain respect for yourself, and then typically other people are going to respect you as well, right? Your wife doesn't have to respect you, but when you have respect for yourself, it kind of doesn't matter that much, because if she doesn't, she doesn't, but you still respect yourself, right? Now, what usually happens is when you respect yourself, you start standing up for yourself in these productive ways, right? And again, this is different than shifting to like, no, I'm more important than my wife, right? What I want's more important than what she wants, right? What she wants doesn't matter. Okay, that's also an immature response, right? Just like it's immature to say, no, it's only what she wants that matters. What I want doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to sacrifice everything for her. That's also immature, because it's not equal, right? You want equality. Okay. So again, this is the strong approach. You being willing to stand up for yourself. And yet you don't have to wait until your self-worth is perfect, right? You can just remind yourself, hey, I'm just as important as my wife is. Just that thought by itself is really powerful. Okay. And you probably will be scared at first to bring some of this stuff up, right? Because part of you, you're used to needing to be liked. So these first conversations are a little bit tricky, but once you start having them, that also builds your self-worth. So it's like this good cycle, this upward spiral of self-worth and standing up for yourself appropriately. Okay. So again, this is a strong approach, and strength is attractive. Okay. So neediness, codependency, and manipulation, they're not attractive. And that's what happens when your focus is being liked. Okay. Because again, you're coming from that empty place of self-worth. So you're trying to get other people to fill it up for you. Okay. So in summary, that desire to be liked, it comes from low self-worth and low self-esteem, and you're never going to be able to get filled up. Okay. There's never going to be enough attention, appreciation, affection, or sex that will finally make you feel good enough. It just does not exist. It can't come from the outside, right? What it leads to is the mosquito cycle, low attraction and low intimacy, or friend zone, right? Roommate zone. Okay. So you have to respect, it starts with self-respect. Okay. And what that comes from is you knowing your own worth and value, as a son of God, as someone who's accomplished a lot of things in his life, and you can feel full because of that. And then you love and respect yourself equally to your wife, not more and not less. Okay. So that lets you go for win-win instead of lose-win. It's not, oh, my wife gets whatever she wants. It's no, like my wife and I work together to both get what we want. Okay. That's mature. And that's what creates a real strong marriage that's full of the mental, emotional, and physical intimacy that you want. Right. So that leads to respect, intimacy, and attraction. Okay. So if you want to learn how to do this, okay, we work on this literally every day in Strong Men, Strong Marriages. The guys in here, we build up that sense of self-worth. We address the root of that mosquito cycle. So every day we're building our self-worth, our self-confidence, and our self-esteem. Okay. So if you want to learn how to do that, address that root of the mosquito cycle, really feel good about who you are, learn how to rebuild that trust, communication, intimacy, so you can create that marriage that's full of mental, emotional, and physical intimacy, fun, flirting, passion, your wife turning towards you, being attracted to you. Okay, come join us in Strong Men, Strong Marriages. So visit strongmenstrongmarriages.com to apply now. Guys are having these wins every day, and I'd love for you to be one of them. All right, men, stay strong, and we will see you next episode.